So the fact that Nigel Farage is now launching a kind of two-pronged attack on Boris Johnson is being exaggerated beyond kind of credibility by the Daily Express. The Daily Express is lying because Farage was only about 10 days ago, or maybe less, shown on television, American television, proclaiming the victory of Donald Trump. And the Daily Express Online has just posted today a piece which could have been written by Nigel Farage or carrying Nigel Farage's kind of lies, but it's given to somebody called Sanderson. And there is an admission that the Farage party always gave the conservatives the votes by undermining the Labour kind of strongholds and Labour Party seats, especially during the 12th of December 2019 election and the so-called landslide. And the Sanderson piece is claiming that the landslide was only made possible by Nigel Farage. And Farage is being praised beyond kind of known phrases and words and kind of epitaphs or whatever. It could be an epitaph, but it's not an epitaph, of course, because the Farage is absolutely delighted with the so-called Downing Street turmoil. Because without that, Farage would have nothing to say about Trump's losing the election. And Trump has been Farage's biggest flag. So this woman who has been given the name for the article, which in effect reads like Farage has dictated it or Farage has written it. Maybe it has been edited to make it readable, but the point is that the contents are very much promoting Nigel Farage. So this is part 3 of the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street, that is the newspapers of London, England-based newspapers. And the latest about the turmoil in Downing Street is that Boris Johnson is being written about by most of the kind of promoters of the last few years, promoters of Boris Johnson as the kind of winner, as the BBC's Norman Smith corruptly peddled Johnson during the so-called leadership election in 2019, the leadership of the Conservative Party. He kept saying that Johnson was a winner. Now they're all saying, well, I haven't actually captured anything that Norman Smith has said, retracting his criminal peddling of Boris Johnson. But essentially the line is now, in the last 24 hours, kind of suggesting and creating the narrative that Boris Johnson is unfit, that Boris Johnson has been caught unawares, and that Boris Johnson has been taken over by Carrie Simons. Our analysis has been that it's not Carrie Simons. Carrie Simons has been used as an emotional lever to kind of compromise Boris Johnson if That is the case by Allegra Stratton and most likely Munira Mirza. But put together all of these is a diversion. The real reason why the Brexiteers had to be shown the door is to appease the new administration coming in the White House. Because the new administration in the White House is very much opposed to Brexit, and especially opposed to the interference with the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. And everything else that goes with that agreement is going to be protected and defended by the new American administration. And on that depends the so-called special relationship. The special relationship between the British kind of regime or the British establishment and the USA or the US establishment is very much a one-sided affair, as admitted most recently by the Financial Times' opinion or policy writer called Philip Stevens, who even mentioned Churchill as being desperate to maintain the mythology of a special relationship, more for the benefit of the British establishment than for the Americans, because the Americans never needed this special relationship or this emphasis. So what is happening in the Downing Street turmoil kind of headlines and the revival of nasty Nigel Farage is that Farage is now inventing new lies to live down his racist, anti-Muslim record. He is now claiming through the Sanderson stupid article on the Express Online that he was the only one who opposed the Syrian intervention by the British and the Iraq war. Can you believe this? Farage is now daring to say that he was the one who was the lone opponent of the UK getting engaged in the Iraq war. We are talking about the various aspects of the lying that the Fleet Street media kind of perpetrates every day, every 24 hours, every kind of round the clock. And with the internet, it can do that literally round the clock. Items can be posted at any time on their kind of websites that are associated with the titles, like, for example, the Daily Express, which is Beaver Brooks' toxic legacy of lying and racism and racist denial. Its website is called express.co.uk, and it follows in every single other title. Fleet Street title is like that. The sun.co.uk, the Daily Mail.co.uk, guardian.co.uk, ft.co.uk, or FT may be the only one that has got the .com about it. But the others are all connected with the title. Newspaper print title is replicated in the name of the website or the page, web page. And there is no sign in any of the papers, no sign whatsoever about why the funding and resourcing of education in the objectively defined sense, education in the sense of reference library. It is still a problem that the British Library is kind of still inaccessible for the many. The British Library is a restricted area, which it should not be, but it is. It is now a kind of no-go area for people who want to gain knowledge and test and check facts and history and references. The only library in London, outside of the British Library, that was actually dedicated to providing a kind of open access to reference materials was the Westminster Council's Westminster Reference Library, situated just near the Trafalgar Square. Now, in the last few years, the resources of this library, the reference library, have been curtailed, drastically curtailed, to the point that there is no access to many of the rare kind of materials that would be available through the Westminster Library. And I have discovered today, Tuesday, the 17th of November 2020, that even the digital copies of The Guardian that used to be available at the Westminster Reference Library in Charing Cross, no longer available. They've been removed. Now, if you look at the billions of pounds, literally billions of pounds of public money being stolen by conservative donors and their criminal cabals, with the active collusion of Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings. And Cummings has enriched himself and his friends and mates with few billion pounds of contracts. So if he is kind of leaving number 10, carrying a kind of paper box, that is a stage. That is a staged kind of propaganda for him. He's a billionaire, directly and indirectly. And the library, the entirety of the collection of the Westminster Library, would not even need 100 million pounds. So look at the open kind of barbarism, dark age, open darkness that the conservatives are imposing on society. Education is curtailed. School meals for children of poor families and backgrounds curtailed or denied. And libraries are being destroyed and shut down. What is going on here in this country? And where are the legacies of the racist T.B. Macaulay? He was going to educate the people of the subcontinent, the brown people, brainwash them into becoming English on the inside while remaining brown on the outside. But there is no reading materials left. There won't be much left in the libraries. And libraries are going to be shut down. And it is for nothing. Because there is no excuse for saying that there is not enough funding. There is more than enough funding. Not only to completely furnish the reference library Westminster with all the materials that people have been using over the decades, but also to expand the funding of the libraries for other boroughs and to make the other boroughs able to open their own versions of reference libraries and reading rooms. And there is no kind of clamor for this by Keir Starmer. I mean, Starmer is not for the many. And this Sanderson piece in the Daily Express kind of portal describes him as the titled millionaire Londoner, which is what he is. And that is why Starmer, he's a millionaire. He has been a millionaire for a while. He issued the ruling, the procedural kind of directive at the Crown Prosecution Service in 2013, that the poorest people, the claimants, the benefit claimants, and the disabled and the sick people, if caught in making any kind of errors or any kind of desperate kind of bid to get the sufficient amount of money by welfare kind of means, welfare procedure, then they should be treated as serious criminals. And Starmer was doing that while thousands of claimants were being pushed into committing mass suicide. That is what Ian Duncan Smith was doing. And his cabal were inflicting on the poorest and the most vulnerable and the most innocent in that sense. So there is no clamor, there is no kind of protest against the vandalism and the destruction of libraries and learning materials being perpetrated by the conservatives for the last 10 plus years. There is no outcry by the Labour Party. Not by Starmer, and it wasn't by Corbyn, and it wasn't by Miliband. Starmer hasn't even completed 1 year of his so-called leadership. So, proportionately, we give him less, we accuse him of less kind of blame, if you like, and failures in the case of, on the matter of the destruction of libraries and educational kind of institutions and educational opportunities. Then we accuse Corbyn and Ed Miliband of doing. Each got, on average, say, let's say, 5 years. And although Ed Miliband has staged a correctly acknowledged kind of intervention and successfully exposing Boris Johnson as an idiot, but while he was, Ed Miliband was in post as leader of the Labour Party, he didn't make the impact that he could have and should have and must have done, based on the evidence of the depraving policies being pursued by David Cameron. And that is not separate and removed from the failure by Ed Miliband and Corbyn, and before those other leaders like Kinnock and Foote. Their failure can be encapsulated and expressed as a failure of the myth of the British kind of superpower. There is no democracy for the people, there is no justice for most people, and there is no access to due process for most people. And internationally, by kind of completely staging the coup against the European Union, these little Englanders have actually undermined a lot of the influence and the say and the legitimacy of the United Kingdom. And contrary to what Sanderson is saying in the piece currently online on the Express website, which I'm sure will be included in the copy on the printed paper tomorrow, contrary to what she's saying, her whole piece is a lie, piece of lie. Brexiteering lie, UKP lie, Brexit party lie, Faragist, Nigel Faragist, racist, anti-Muslim, anti-migrant, corruption and lies. The other thing is that Farage should be kind of reported by the journalists, the Fleet Street papers, which claim to be not fully paid members of the racist, nasty parties and movements and tendencies. Farage should be reported as being a person under investigation for lying and for fraudulently pocketing hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not millions of pounds over the last 20 plus years, under the cover of being a member of the MEP. Farage lied and cheated, and his cheating and lying have been well documented. It is something that should be treated as a serious matter. But Fleet Street is letting him enjoy the impunity from coverage of his corruption and lying and his racism. And we shall be talking about the issues in the next part.